Call Mr. Pollock from the Extension Service at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS. Ask him your question about your lawns, your gardens, and such. And Mr. Pollock, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, kind of wet walking over here, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Won't need any sunglasses today.
No, and snow in the forecast for Sunday. Yeah.
Would that be the onion snow?
I would guess. It'd be the 4th of July snow around these parts. Okay, have a question for you from the internet.
Okay.
This one was emailed to me. It says, trying to get forsythia to grow, broke off some branches and stuck them in the ground, and no luck. What's the secret? All right. I imagine there was a little more went into it than just that, but you get the general idea of what this person tried to do to get forsythia to grow. What must he do?
Well, we don't know the timing of when he did that, and that could have something to do with it. Forsythia aren't that difficult to propagate. In fact, if you let their branches weep down to the ground, a lot of times they'll just, where that branch touches the ground, or you could even weight it down, let the branches weep down far enough that they touch the ground, put a little stone on there or some way to just attach that branch right on the surface of the ground, and it'll root from there.
Okay.
And you can grow a new plant.
Evidently, this guy can't.
Maybe he needs to try again.
Okay. But if you have forsythia here and then you want to plant it 20 feet further away, what's the procedure then?
Well, then, so you could do it by cuttings. Now the question is whether we use softwood cuttings or hardwood cuttings, and I can get those details for him.
Okay.
So some plants vary. I'm getting old too. I don't remember everything I used to know. So I have to look it up. No, I got that part.
Okay.
But the timing of the year is important. Whether we can take softwood cuttings of new growth during the summer or whether you use hardwood cuttings, so growth from last year.
Okay.
All right. Usually you try to do that before it's leafed out. And then you can stick that in sand or a propagating mix and propagate them that way. And if you're going to do it with softwood cuttings, usually then you need a little bit of temperature, moisture, and be able to control that until those cuttings can get rooted.
Okay.
But then you can make multiple plants from that.
Okay, so it sounds like he is using hardwood cuttings. He's using cuttings from last year.
Yeah, he might have. And then whether you peel a little bit of the bark off the base of that cut stem and stick that in the medium. Sometimes you can get decay if you leave the bark on. That'll start to rot instead of growing. So there's just some procedures that need to be followed, and we can get him the specific details of a couple different methods that he can try to make it work.
All right.
But he should be able to do it.
Forsythia is not that hard to grow?
No.
Okay. No. All right. Well, it's that time of the year when
some things are very challenging.
Yeah.
Some plants you cannot take cuttings and propagate them. Some we have to do by seed. So it's specific to the plant you're trying to grow, as far as the timing, the type of how you're going to do it, and then go from there.
Well, people have taken a look around their yards now, and since we're to the leafing season when things are starting to bloom, they're getting an idea of what they had hoped was going to bloom for them and is not, and so they're trying to make other plans right now. Rhubarb is one thing that should be up by now and should be starting to get pretty strong, right?
Yes.
Okay, what if it isn't?
Well, a little bit of that can depend on the variety, although there's not that many varieties of rhubarb. Depending on how well the plant is established, how old it is, can influence how quickly it comes up in the spring. Whether it's been divided at all in the past, if that plant has been there for 40 years and it is getting too thick, too many of them, that can start to cause a decline or a weakness in that planting that they may need dug up, divided, and replanted, spread out a little bit more to give each plant a little bit more space. Just like a lot of perennial plants can do, they can get too jammed in and get the age of it just get too old and too woody, so you have a lot of energy going into just kind of supporting that plant, and less goes into growing the harvestable crop.
Yeah, I'll have another question on that in a couple of moments, but we do have a caller, so we want to get to her. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a question about ants. I have a large flower bed that seems to be infested with red ants, and I didn't know, I mean, they come after you if you try to weed in there. Is there something that I can do to discourage them?
Sure. You can disrupt them. A couple ways to do that. I mean, if you can get in there, depending on the plants and how they're planted, whether you can do a little excavation there, dig it up, and disturb them that way, expose the nest, depending on how, if it's just a small nest, that's easier to do with just even a trowel. Dig them up, and if there's eggs in there, you can get that out of there and reduce the population that way. So disturb.
They seem to be everywhere.
Yeah, and over time, especially in a perennial bed where you don't till the soil very often, or you're not, working in there other than weeding maybe for the most part, that soil's undisturbed, so it allows them places to make multiple ant hills and establish colonies throughout. So, and then of course we can use, if that doesn't work, to at least reduce the population, then of course we can. There's several different insecticides that can be used that you can pour right into the hole that will help control that colony that's there.
Is that generally granular or liquid?
Yeah, either one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's both granular that could be put down as well as liquid formulations. And you just get one that's formulated for ants. And even
Now, if they weren't coming and virtually attacking me, is having the ants there is not a bad thing?
No, it's really not harmful. Yeah, other than them trying to come after you, yeah, for the most part, they're not going to do you any harm. They're not going to harm the plants, and they're a part of nature that can be just left alone.
Have you lost any toes yet?
No, but they, as soon as you step in there, they come after you and try to bite you all over.
Yeah.
I've never had red ants before, and they've only been black ones, and they don't seem to bother you too much unless you disturb them an awful lot.
Right.
But these ones, it's like they're territorial, and the moment you even step foot in there, they're crawling up your legs and are sticking into your hands and biting you.
Yeah, they just that little bit of activity, the movement, the vibration, and they sense that something's gone awry.
And you're tasty. You're tasty. Well, I hope it works for you.
You're welcome.
All right, so there you go. Ants problem, fire ants or something like that.
Yeah, and sometimes they're not as active when it's really wet either, or they'll move around locations depending on the wetness of the soil and how saturated it is.
That rhubarb question we were talking about a couple of moments ago. Would the rhubarb plant's lack of desire to come back to life today have anything to do with when they were cut off last year or the year before? In other words, in other words,
harvesting,
is there a time of the year when you cut those leaves off and you shouldn't?
And normally in the spring on a well-established planting, that's one thing when you make a new planting, you try to, the first year and sometimes even the second year, you don't harvest any from it, any of the stalks. And wait till that plant gets established. And usually spring, we usually don't do it during the middle of the summer, but usually spring, and then you can do a little bit in the fall. But spring's the main harvest time.
Okay.
So depending on the health of that plant, that will kind of help determine how much, and then how quickly that regrows after you harvest stalks from it. How quickly does it come back? If it's really slow to come back, then you may say, okay, I'm not going to harvest any more from this plant or these plants right now because I noticed that it's slow to come back. Okay. So fertility can affect that, age of the plant, timing or the amount of harvest that you do can affect the overall health and how quickly it comes back. And all the wet weather we've had the last couple of years.
Rhubarb doesn't like wet?
No, most plants need some
rice
drainage.
Likes this kind of weather, but that's
rice
about it.
Rice can grow in the water. But yeah, even rhubarb can get too much moisture in the ground for too long, so you could get a little bit of root rot, decay there that we can't see unless you do some digging. And then that can affect the overall health of the plant.
Okay.
So it won't come back as quick.
So forsythia, ants, and rhubarb so far today.
Quite a combination this morning.
Yeah. Anything?
And it's Arbor Day. A little tough to plant trees today, though.
Is today Arbor Day?
It's the 4th Friday of April. So it's the official.
Somehow that bypassed me.
Yeah, just like that.
Are you planting a tree anywhere today?
The Shade Tree Commission will be planting a tree on North 5th Street, just kind of adjacent to where the junior high, their athletic field there behind the junior high off of 4th Street, right in that block. Going to be planting some trees there, and I believe that's where they're going to have the ceremony at 8:30 this morning.
Why would they not tell us things like this?
The press release.
We could have all kinds of people out there.
Or
mayor, maybe not.
The mayor, the mayor should be making his Arbor Day proclamation and everything there.
He went right down through here a couple of minutes ago. Thank you, Robert.
You are welcome. Thank you.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160, 101.1 FM. Fox News next, top of the hour.